in Pulau Brani Island. My house was actually half still, half land.
As I squat down, I saw these two big eyes looking at me. Big, huge snake.
We see the high tide jump into the sea.
Keppel Harbour. It was so deep, the ships could come so close to the harbour.
There was also a railway line connecting the old railway station at Tanjong Pagar and Keppel Harbour, carry goods from Malaysia to the ship.
We would just be in awe of the train coming, huge trains.
I was born on the island of Pulau Brani. My dad was one of the orang Laut. Orang Laut consists of people at Gelang Lorong 3, Kranji River, small island southern of Singapore, namely Pulau Brani, Belakang Mati, Pulau Bukum, Pulau Seking, Pulau Semakau, Pulau Seraya, and so on and so forth. They used to stay inside the boat. Gradually, they shifted to the island itself. These photos are my dad and my uncle at Pulau Brani. They were orang Laut, but employed as one of the Marine Department officer.
I was born in Pulau Brani Island on 11 December 1945. My house was actually half still, half land. My childhood life was wonderful, free and easy. Every day, just go fishing, crabbing, netting. Pulau Brani consists of 3 kampong: Teluk Saga, Masak Timah, and Selat Singkeh. Teluk Saga is where I live. The population in Teluk Saga is about 500 to 600. I would say 70–80% are Malay. Pulau Brani was quite vibrant because of the British Army. My father was working as a chief clerk for the British Army. Most of them are employed by the British Army, and then life is quite comfortable over there.
All the local houses on the island, as far as I was aware, were on stilts. They were all on stilts. I remember when we first went, I was too scared to go on them because we called them wobbly stilts. And if I was to go on them, I'd fall off and I'd be scared. I'd go so many steps and then turn around and run back.
Kita pasang tongkat, lepas itu baru kita dirikan rumah atas rumah tu lah. Kalau ribut turun, rumah tu tak roboh.
The mud is very soft. The steel that goes into the ground is at least about 4 feet, It is not easy. These steel are actually bakau steel. You got to change the stilt 1 or 2 months once because this stilt will get rotten, eaten by the sea creatures. One house at least few hundreds. We change part by part. You cannot afford to do the whole lot at one time. You need also the stilt for the lorong because our house is on top of the sea. So in order to go back to my house, I got to walk on the stilt lorong.
The houses on stilts were a novelty because you'd be able to see the water through the floorboards, the wobbly stilts. I remember walking along there one day. A lady walked by and I think her child fell into the water. And I looked over and I thought, oh, I've got to jump in. It was only a young child because we'd learned all the life-saving skills in swimming, and his mum realised that he jumped in, and I was relieved that I didn't have to jump in because I must have only been about 8 or 9.
We went onto the wobbly stilts to see the seamstress. My mother used to go to the seamstress to get clothes made. You couldn't buy anything off the shelf. Everything was made.
My mum, she sewed for the British Army ladies because these British Army ladies, they are so free. And they form a team of a netball player and all that. So mum will always sew uniform for them. So these British Army ladies will always come to my newly built house to do measurement and all that. She has a sewing machine. She only sew for the British Army team. They got the uniforms and all.
Semua di atas air itu tidak ada paip air. Jadi kita orang kampung ambil air, kadang-kadang ambil di sentosa. Kita mengambil dari rumah, turunkan kita punya jerrycan masuk dalam sampan, kadang-kadang 10, kadang-kadang sampai 12 tin kita kayu, ambil air di kolam sana. Dan pergi, boleh kata selamat, kadang kosong. Balik nak jaga. Dan bila air dah penuh, sampan jadi sikitlah, itu nak jaga. Kalau obat kuat, rasa tak baik, tenggelamlah.
The toilet then was like a hole. They cut a hole and you just do your business there.
They just had a hole in the room and everything just fell into the sea.
You can see these rabbit fish coming out to eat the poo that's floating around on the top of the water.
One morning, I went to use the toilet. As I squat down, I saw these 2 big eyes looking at me. I just pulled out my pants and ran up to my dining table and jump and start crying and screaming. Then Mum ran to me. What happened? I said, it's a big, huge snake. So she go and get my dad. They saw this snake swimming, so they boiled chicken eggs. They throw into the sea for the snake to eat. After that, they say the snake went away.
The resulting ingots are over 99% pure tin and is invaluable in the manufacture of alloys which the industrial world needs, all the way from bronze bearings for ships and trains to the coating in the familiar tin can.
At Pulau Brani, we have one factory, Singapore Tin-Smelting Company. We have a special ship from Malaysia that send and collect tin ore and the completed tin ingot, normally from Perak and Selangor. They want to make bullets, they want to make so many things, from this ingot.
We moved to a house right next to the tin-smelting works. It was one of the biggest tin-smelting works in Southeast Asia. It was a very big concern on the island. It did leave a lot of dust, so if we were walking barefoot in the house, you invariably ended up with black feet. If you were on the veranda, there was constant black dust, very fine. When they melted the tin from the rocks, left a very, very shiny black rock, and they were spread out on the land, and it was great fun for us to see if we were brave enough to walk barefoot across these very sharp, jagged rocks that looked like black glass.
人嚟到做工啊，伊那腰下咯，伊那倒出来啊，伊下咯碰到伊那卡去了嘛，伊那口情较够了无？你也下加落个真多啊，所以人那个行出来。So when finish time it's over， 那叫真多个腰多顿，叫到尾啦淡薄，有累啦，唔是无累。
Keppel Harbour. It was so deep, the big ships can come in, unload things so close. The ships will come in where there's water, like a big swimming pool, and then they will seal it and pump the water out, and then the ship will be left dry, and they can do all the repair work or painting work on the ship. And then when it's ready, they will open the gates, let the water come in, and then the ship will slowly move out into the sea again. The ships could come so close to the harbour because the water was very deep. And that's how our harbour became so famous.
The Singapore Harbour Board was mainly for ship repairs and for supplying and victualling ships calling at Singapore. And I was born in Teluk Blangah, in one of the shop houses which were built pre-war. Essentially, the main industry there was the Singapore Harbour Board. Most of the shop houses there were also properties of the Singapore Harbour Board. They had a mix of shops and services there, mainly to service the dock workers. And my father ran a provision shop selling rice, sundry goods, household items. Growing up in the old shops, I used to have nice view of the ships calling into the docks for servicing. I have ships sailing past towards Sentosa or Pulau Brani area.
Yung chun jeep lại, jeep yên docking chứ, on site hàng nổi là, cái hàng tu hình ấy, nó thu cái gì, mình cái leo làm gì, xe bơi làm gì, đó gì là sắm nó cả lâu rồi, yên dry dock dry rồi, có được cái sau là cả, bây giờ chỉ chín tay ở đây này càng, nếu sometimes yên sun, I mean yên rust chín cao, giờ lăng chỉ hay mới khi đâu khá sun à. Chỉ suffering à, khi đâu khá, oh yeah, whole thing à, nó không gì ra cái phí à, 未偷佢啊！啲 copper 嘢伸咁走啦。
New Zealand apples coming ashore at Singapore find a ready market.
For Singapore Harbour Port, top dogs were mainly the British, then lower will be the Eurasians, all local groups who could speak and write English. Then below them were mainly the dialect and the vernacular speaking locals. The Teochews and the Hokkien's group were mainly in electrician groups. Malays were drivers, stevedores, and gardeners and sweepers, and so were the Indians. As my father was running a provision shop, we had Malay and Tamil customers. Most of them are workers at the dockyards. And we have Eurasians, we have Europeans. In those days, provision shop was considered a good business because immediately after the war, there was a ration system. People who wanted to buy rice had to bring along a cart, and they were allocated certain quantity which they can purchase. Workers were either daily paid or weekly paid, and very often they had to ask for credit. I remember my father had to keep a ledger. The customers, they were a mixed bag in a way. The items they buy reflect their class. Clerks will go and buy things like Milos, milk, condensed milk. Poor one will buy for the Blue Cross or the Lifeguard brand, cheaper. Best customers were the Europeans. They came, they buy all the expensive or high-priced items, Jacob biscuits, which was considered a really luxury item, and they bought without haggling or bargaining and pay in cash. That was the era. We accepted the British were our overlord because they were occupying the higher position. They traveled in style, chauffeur-driven car. They dressed better. In school, we were trained or brainwashed to respect the Queen. I remember during the Queen's coronation, the Queen was like a pop star to us. We stood up, when the God Save the Queen was sung.
My dad was a warrant officer, so we lived in a bungalow in Pulau Brani. But we intermingled really, really well with the local people. Down in the kampong, we had our armours. My brother was born here in the British military hospital. He only spoke in Cantonese because he spent so much time with Amoy, who was our armour. And my mother was concerned that Richard, my younger brother, didn't speak English. And she had to say to Amoy, "You've got to try and speak to Richard in English because he's speaking Cantonese, you know?" Dad did do lots of filming. And the dog, we loved our dog. Dad with a tiger beer. See, no pubs or anything there.
Dad had a cine camera. He took some cine photos. We have hundreds and hundreds of photographs of Singapore.
We had a lovely bungalow, 54 Azure Avenue, and the kampong was just beyond. And Mum used to say to us, "Go down to the kampong and see Mrs. Lim and get a catty of rice." And we'd say, "Mummy wants a catty of rice." And she used to wrap it in newspaper, and she'd make like a triangle. We used to have to go home with a catty of rice, or maybe 6 eggs or something. No, there was no traffic. We walked everywhere.
Being posted to Singapore was a paradise for most people. The weather was kind, you were never snowed in, you could always get out of your house, you didn't have to wear coats. It was very much freedom for the wives. They weren't bogged down by domestic duties. There was an armour to look after the children, so they had freedom to go out with their husbands, knowing that the children would be well looked after.
We had so many friends, and the children of our armours, they used to come and play with us. Lots and lots of mud when it rained, but it was very lush. And drains, huge drains, which we used to slide down when it rained in the monsoon. Fabulous.
We lived slightly on a hill, and there was this large drain that used to run from our garden down the hill. And the monsoons used to come, pouring with rain, and we used to slide in the drains. Put your feet out in front to stop you turning left or right and getting sucked away or something.
Mum would go mad. Oh, you shouldn't be doing that. No, sorry. And then we do it again the following day.
We children very naughty. I mean, see the high tide back from the school, hit, open the shirt, jump into the sea. Or we do the fishing from the house itself. You can get this catfish, get garupa, and so on and so forth. The orang Laut, their specialty is catching fish by nets, bubu, these cage under the sea. The iron cage, after 1 or 2 days, then we pick it up. You can have a lot of groupers lah, wow, nice fish.
During that time, a lot of fish, a lot of squid, a lot of everything. We paddle from Pulau Brani to near Tanjong Island or Kusu Island, where there's a lot of good spot for all these little fish. You go to a muddy spot, you can get like stingray, catfish.
十个9个拢做会晓事，免去 instructor。We stay at Kuala next to it is Sentosa. 我那个才 swim over 咯，with one ball 嚟，入橋咧破了你 cut 就少多燈。
The first power plant in Singapore was actually St. James Power Station. That station was very small. It only had 1 or 2 diesel engine units. But later then they built the Pasir Panjang Power Station, which consisted of steam turbines. The steam turbines drove electrical generators, and these electrical generators produced electricity and sent to the network to electrify Singapore.
I grew up in Pasir Panjang Power Station. My father was working in a power station. He was a boiler cleaner. Power station was about steam boiling. They get in seawater, because power station was at the seaside. The seawater gets in and they boil and they use the steam to produce electricity. So therefore this boiling of the seawater is normally done in a boiler tank, and this boiler tank needs to be cleaned often.
In 1958, my father joined the PUB to work as a shift charge engineer at the Pasir Panjang Power Station. He was in charge of a team of engineers and artisans who worked on 8-hour shifts around the clock. The morning shift would be from 8 to 4 p.m. and then from 4 p.m. to 12 midnight would be the evening shift, and then the night shift from 12 midnight to 8 a.m. So he would do that for 3 days, and then it would be 2 days off.
Around 12 o'clock, there will be a siren from power station to announce that it's a lunch break time. So all the workers will come up.
The fathers who wants to collect lunch will come to the fence. Either the children or the mother will be there to hand over the lunch to them through the fence. They'll have their lunch and go back to home. The quarters was free of charge of rental. Water was free, electricity was free. And it's a secured area. Not anyone could go in. It's much like a condominium without a swimming pool. We have tennis court, we have food court, 200 over families living there. We have 5 8-story flats. The place is like probably about 12 to 14 football grounds if I were to compare. 65% Indians, mostly Tamils, 20% Malays, about 5 to 7% Chinese. Every neighbor knows every other neighbor. We were more like a relative, not blood related, but a relative. When I come back after school, my parents would have arrangement for me to go to a particular auntie's house or uncle's house, and they will feed us. No question asked. So no sugar, just go to the neighbor and ask. No childcare center needed. Groceries, no need.
My father was one of the first Eurasians or Asians to work as a shift charge engineer at the power station. They were local, but the engineer positions were held mainly by the British. Our neighbors were several Eurasian families. When it was Chinese New Year, and we were firing our firecrackers, and there was a knock on the door. It was one of our British neighbors upstairs, came to complain about the noise. My mum told him off. It was a custom and a tradition in Singapore that for Chinese New Year, we fire the crackers. So he just walked off in a huff.
From the window, we can see the sea. It's a very beautiful place to live in. Like a posh A kind of living standard. What I mean by high class, that when you stay in a condo or something, you are facing a sea, you pay high premium, right? Something like that.
We lived on the 8th floor. We had a lovely view of the sea right at the top. It stretched across the whole of the east wing. We could see the sun setting and sinking into the sea. How often you can see a sunset into the sea in a shimmering light as it disappears at the horizon.
I'm a contractor at that time, so I used to collect cable. In 1969, I was doing these overhead jobs in kampong area. The wires all running on the overhead. You're erecting the pole, then you will lay the cable on the pole to supply electricity to the kampong houses. Some houses are newly built, zinc houses, but no electricity for them. So we lay the cable for them. In 60s, some places don't have electricity. They start progressing, they start laying cable and everything. Inside the power station, we got to collect cable, but they given us a glove and a safety belt, that's all. I heard people had got accident, but I didn't see them.
I think it was 1944 or 45. My father, he had a job in the Malayan breweries. The Malayan breweries was located in between Pasir Panjang and Alexandra. And there they brewed tiger beer. But he had a clinic inside the brewery compound. And he looked after the medical needs of the workers. I cannot give you a number of workers, but I know there were many, many, many workers. The females were all Chinese. They were in the assembly line where the bottles are flowing and then they're checking to make sure the bottles are filled or closed and sealed. There were also men. They did the heavier jobs like moving boxes of bottles. There were no cans in those days. The brewery was owned by Dutch people. They opened two. One was the Malayan breweries, which brewed tiger beer. And then further down the road was the Anchor Brewery. So that was where they made Anchor beer. But FNN, sarsaparilla. Why did this brewery have a clinic? Because there were so many workers and they needed medical assistance. If you have 200 or 300 workers, someone will have some kind of medical issue. Sometimes the bottles may break, someone may get cut, and these wounds have to be stitched, and he can do that also. My father decided to bring my mother to work. She would dress in white sari, my father was dressed in white clothes, and they would work in the clinic.
The problem then was the gangsters, the underworld, the gang fights, those young gangsters coming wanting to collect protection money. I'm talking now mainly about Tolwanga, Keppel shipyard area. When I was there in the shop, one new member of a gang came in to test or show off his bravery and demanded money or extortion. Then my father sat him down calmly and said, "You should ask your boss to come and talk to me first." Now my father earned their respect because as a shopkeeper, he has certain standing in the community. He has certain financial influence. He could give credit. He could give good discount. He could do favors. And he was quite a smart and astute businessman. He was quite active in community work. When any of these young gang members were locked up, their parents would have great fear that they will be physically bashed up within the cell. So very often they'll come to my father and say, "Mr. Tan, my son has been locked up. He's innocent. I don't want him to be harmed. Can you do something? Can you help to bail him out?" So my father has helped some of these. But I've actually seen gang fights. One group chasing after another group and throwing glasses, bottles. And I've seen actually one young gangster dying in a market at Wizard Road. He was stabbed by the opposite gang member. And I went to the market and I saw him bleeding and everybody gave him a white bird because they don't want to be seen to be accused of the other side of the gang. And that was, to me, very traumatic. That was the existing orders of things. And of course, there was a certain amount of fear that if we should upset any of the more notorious and vicious characters in those gangs, we could be injured or hurt.
When we were children, I guess going on a mainland is like a trip, a treat as well. It's because we're going to a movie or going somewhere for dinner.
The ship is a ferry. It's operated by the British Army. They will employ one soldier to look after those passengers going up and down. From Pulau Brani, they got two jetty. One is Bola Jetty and one is Corner Jetty. So from any of these jetty, you can take the ferry to Jardin Step. During raining day, they got a shelter on top, much better than a sampan. Those who work for British Army, they got a special pass for you to travel from Pulau Brani to Jardin Step to and fro. If you don't work for the British Army, you got to go by sampan. Each trip will cost you 30 cents.
你可以上去5个啦，你也无雪的无 cover 嘞，啊是个 wave 大落雨，又 wet 啦。Especially rainy season 啦，又 wave 啊，较 rough 啊，也是。So going up 的，也jetty是真危险的，滑倒起来，sometimes slip down。
and get off at Jardine steps, up the steps. Be careful you don't slip and fall in the water. Run along the jetty and see the peanut man sat there with his baskets of peanuts. Again, in newspaper, these little cones of peanuts. Get some peanuts, get on the bus, go to school.
In 1973, around April, I got a job in Port of Singapore Authority as a land surveyor. So the engineers, the architects, they do the planning. Then it's left to the surveyor. We'll go to the site, and as in the drawing, we demarcate the area. Where is the location? Where is this? Okay, in the paper, this is the planned location. So we will demarcate where the pier should come. So we do a lot of rock bunds. We do a lot of wharves. Rock bunds is to prevent the water from eroding the banks. We also build piers for boats landing, put markers for the boats, and the ships come, don't bang so hard. So we'll put where you can put the tires, so they have controls. When you survey, it has to be very accurate. Sometimes go early in the morning, because when it is very hot, our instruments also won't be very precise. When the tide is high, you can't walk. The water is up to here already. I live in Blair Plain. Blair Plain is only for PSA, Port of Singapore Authority. Few hundred people live there. These port workers at that time, like forklift drivers, mostly were Indians or Malays. Sometimes they come and borrow, and then sometimes they don't pay back. Living in a community like that, you come to know more people. We become good friends, and then sometimes when they are short, they come and borrow, and then when they don't pay, the relationship fell apart and all that. Today also people are there taking advantage. Human nature never changed. The harbour was the crucial thing. And then don't forget, right there also was the railway station.
There was also a railway line connecting the old railway station at Tanjong Pagar and Keppel Harbour. And this railway line runs behind the shop house, carrying goods from Malaysia to the ship, to the port. But there was a real connection between that Tanjong Pagar railway station and to Keppel Harbour.
I remember my father used to bring us to the railway station. It was such a nice thing to go into the station and see the grand hall. There were designs on the ceiling. We would just be in awe of the train coming in, huge trains, right? Coming in and then slowing down, and then you see the engine with smoke coming out. For us young kids, it was, wow, what a thing, exciting to see.
Tanjong Pagar railway station would be the endpoint for railway transport of both goods and people. A lot of the goods, very rich hinterland, was transported down to Singapore. The goods were distributed all over the world, whether it's rubber, tin. Railway transport was the main means to do so. Railways was built really to transport both goods and people in this very lucrative place in the world that various colonial powers were trying to gain access to. 1972 to 73, I was always traveling on the train between Kuala Lumpur and Singapore. Tanjong Pagar railway station was very meaningful to me, so that even now when I pass by, it always strikes. There's some emotion that goes through me.
I used to travel to JB in the train. The custom clearance all are done in Singapore. We no need to go to Woodlands and do the custom clearance. Customs inside the railway station. You declare everything down there, then you can take the train, you can go to JB. No passport, nothing. We just show our goods.
The train ride itself from Tanjong Pagar all the way to Kuala Lumpur, there are certain markers along the way, So when you pull out of the station, it's like, oh, hooray, I'm going home, and the feeling is exciting to be going home to visit family, see friends. I also like to look out the window and see the sceneries passing by. And all along the way, you see farms, you see jungle, you see Hindu temples. Just looking at the passengers on the train, coming or going, you can see how this train, this Tanjong Pagar railway station, brought people back and forth in their lives for work, for living. More than a means of transport, it's helping people connect. Without the train, many things could not have happened. It brought huge numbers of people through the everyday decisions to move between Singapore and upcountry Malaya.
I think it was 1969 or 1970, thereabouts. My father said that the Singapore government is going to evacuate everybody, so we all have to move out.
Kami disuruh pindah secara mendadak, tiba-tiba dengan 1 bulan notis. Tahun 72. Oh, mestilah kita marah. Datuk nenek kita dah tinggal begitu lama di sana, tiba-tiba dia kasih notis 1 bulan, dia macam zalim.
There is no choice. There is a letter given that you have to move out because Pulau Brani itself, I have my grandfather and my youngest uncle passed away in Pulau Brani, and their grave is still at Pulau Brani. So, if I cannot be allowed to go to Pulau Brani, how am I going to pay visit to relatives, you see?
I moved out in 73. There's one who moved out 73. When everybody left the island, he was still there. Because he wanted to stay there until he has to move out.
I don't feel sad at all. Yeah, it's like a new change. That time I got boyfriend already, so I don't miss Brani then. By then I got new groups of friends.
We consider it as lucky lah. We'll be left behind. People mainland are more advanced.
Gambar ini sebenarnya adalah gambar terakhir bagi saya dan keluarga saya meninggalkan Pulau Brani ke tanah besar Singapura. Masih ingatlah 8 bulan 5 tahun 1973.
Pulau Brani definitely was like a paradise on earth. I definitely feel I'm a better person because of that. Because a good experience is going to be better for you in later life, isn't it? And I just wanted to walk up. I'm getting emotional now. I wanted to walk up the jetties, get off the launch, walk up the jetty. Yeah, I wanted to. Yeah. But it's going to be redeveloped, we understand, and maybe in a couple of years' time we might have the fortune to come back.
The only regret we have amongst all of us, we were not able to visit it. When you look at it from a distance and cannot even land on the island anymore. My brother bought a house in Sentosa, and as I was driving my brother on the bridge, And I saw that island and I said, let's stop and have a look at Pulau Brani. And I have got, this funny feeling and this vivid memory just kept coming back. And I cry.